Hey everybody, I am Eric with Learn Design with Eric, and today we're going to do something a little bit different. I'm actually going to take you onto my PC and I'm going to show you some tips and tricks in Photoshop, some things that are really new that only started maybe 3 or 4 months ago, and as far as in the Creative Suite in Photoshop, and just some general tips, the ways that things can be done now versus how they were done in the past. And just kind of show you some tools, and let's have fun on the PC or Mac if you've got a Mac.
Just gonna take a look at Photoshop here. This is on a PC, Windows 10, and just gonna talk to you briefly about Photoshop and a few little tips and tricks that I use all the time in my job. And one of the things I use all the time is photography sites like Unsplash.com. Unsplash is relatively new on the scene, and one of the things that I really love about Unsplash is that the photography on here has just a real, it looks real. It's not so stock photography-ish. For instance, we go to Getty Images, and with Getty, you know, there's some great photography on here, but there's also a lot of, say we just go to family photo as an example, and you see a lot of imagery on here that looks very much like stock imagery. Now this is actually kind of a bad example. Let's see if we can locate some of my favorite people that I seem to know personally, that I see everywhere in all of the imagery that I look at. Yeah, see, like this guy right here, I know that guy. Seen him about 1 million times. And so I just end up spending a lot of time looking for smiling family photos. And like, here's a great example, right? These people, this guy right here, this lady, this man, I see them everywhere. They're like stock photography models. And even though it's a great shot, you know, and generally they have nice teeth and all that, it's not real. I mean, the lighting, they're backlit, and yet you can see all their faces. So it's been studio lit, doesn't look real. Whereas, say this shot here, it's got a little bit more of a reality to it. I don't see any studio lighting here. There may be a fill light over here, but generally speaking, you've got the one light source, this big window, and it just feels more real. And, you know, not everybody has the best face. Like this guy right here isn't smiling. This guy looks like he's mad at the photographer or something. In any case, that kind of reality is what I really like about Unsplash. And so, and the other thing that they have here is they have branded stuff, which I really like as well. You don't really see any branded stuff on any of the other stock photography sites. And that's one of the things I like. So you'll see stuff like Fujifilm, or you'll see like Nike or Jimmy Dean. You'll see Nike logos. You'll see Adidas on their shoes. See, if this was on Getty, her shoes would either be white or they'd have done something to wipe out these branded pieces, which just kind of takes away from real life and reality. Because as you know, we're seeing advertising everywhere we go. So what we're going to show and talk about today briefly is we're going to look at doing a clipping path. So I'm just going to do woman. I'm just going to pull a woman off of here. Let's use this one right here, because I think we've all seen her. I've seen her in like advertising and stuff like that. Now, one of the things that happens a lot is here. Let me just create this image and paste it in there. And one of the things I do a lot is I'll do like website like sliders. So I'll do like a 1600 by maybe 750 website slider, and I'll want to have this woman here either maybe over on this side or over on the other side, and then I'll have to have a fill, some sort of a background fill. Now, one of the things you can do is Photoshop has this really neat tool, which is Shift F5 for all of y'all, and it's got content aware fill. Okay, so it's going to guess what's going to be in that background. And it does an okay job. You see how it's got kind of this weirdness over here, and it's stretched this thing out. It's not going to do a great job over the long haul. So that's not the best way to solve this problem of trying to create a cohesive background. And so the best way to do it, in my opinion, would be to clip her out. And then you can place her on any background you want within this slide image. And then we're going to put headlines or whatever over here. And so what I would do in this case is I would clip her out. Now, there's a couple ways you can do that in Photoshop. There's actually probably dozens of ways to do that, but we're going to talk about the easiest way to do that. And in comparison to kind of what you used to have to do before this tool came into play. So last year, if I had this exact same situation, what I would do is I would save this image and I would send it to a clipping agency. There's places like one that I used to use all the time is called Clipping Path Asia. And for like about $4, you can have this clipped out professionally. And what you'll get back is a path, a perfect path, and then you can just clip it out and apply it. You can also do it manually if you just have nothing but time and have nothing better to do in your life. And that's this kind of thing, using the pen tool. And I'm really fast at this, but I've got a lot to do on my plate at work. I have a lot more to do than I can spend time clipping stuff out. And when you got all this hair to deal with, it's kind of a hassle. This is kind of the way that we used to do things back in the day before some of these new tools came into play. And so you can see how I could probably spend 15 minutes or maybe even 20 minutes just clipping out this one image for this project that I'd be working on, this slider. So, to zoom out, you can kind of see what I'm doing there. So I'm using the pen tool to create a path, and once that path is created, then you can apply the selection to it, and then you can clip it out. I'm not going to do the whole thing because it's going to take a while. So that being said, that's one of the ways that you could do this. Now, the way that you should do this using today's tools in Photoshop is literally the easiest thing ever. So you go up and you go to select subject. It's going to take a second. And bam. Done. I mean, it's literally that simple. So then the next thing, I always non-destructively modify. I'm a big fan of that. So what I do is grab this layer, hit the plus down there to create another version of that same layer. And then we're going to go select and mask. So that's select and mask. Or it's also, in this case, Alt-Control-R. I believe it might be Shift-Command-R on Mac. I'll confirm that. In any case, there you have it. Now, one thing that it does, this select and mask tool, is it tends to create kind of a chunky selection because it kind of is working with pixels. And so one of the things I always do is smooth it, and so that it doesn't have that chunky appearance. And I'll usually take it to 25 to 30 here. And then I'll also feather it just a little bit. This case, it's a very blurry edge, so I'm going to feather it maybe more than I might otherwise if it was more of a hard edge. And I'm just going to take a quick gander at it. It looks pretty good. And I also like to shift the edge in just a bit, which brings those pixels into the colored area a little bit more. It's also going to take out maybe some of the finer hair, which is fine in this case. So then we're going to say OK. And then we're going to click on this little button down here, which is going to create a layer mask, and that's going to remove that background. Now you can't see anything yet because I have to hide the other layer. So there you have it. Clipped out. So, and then of course the background would be gone if I hid the background. So then you might save this, in your library so you have it available to you. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this layer over to the new file. So there's my new clipped out gal. And then I'm going to go and look for a background that I think is going to work for this solution here. So we're going to go back in here. We're going to go into Unstock again. I like these bokeh backgrounds. I'm assuming that's how you say that. Bokeh, whatever. Let's see. And I guess it would depend on the subject matter. For now, I don't really know. I mean, I'm just doing like a demo here. So I mean, actually, I have quite a few that I use ongoing. I'm going to try this one. Let's see what this does. Now, similarly, I'm going to just create a new layer here, or a new document. And it's going to automatically, Photoshop automatically detects the size of what you're trying to paste in. And then we're going to use that tool. I'm just going to quicken lasso this really fast. And then I'm going to go Shift F5, Content Aware Fill. And it's going to remove those bottles. And it's not going to do the very best job. I mean, you can see the counter kind of got bumped up here a little bit. There's some kind of weird lighting effects going on here. But I don't think I'm going to see that because I'm going to be using the top section. So I'm just going to copy that now. Go bring it into this other layer here. Paste. And then kind of reposition it. And then also depending on what I'm putting in here, like what text I'm going to use or what color of text I'm going to use, I may need to apply some sort of additional filters to this. Like I might add another layer and then select maybe this darker color here and just literally just, you know, give it a little bit of a gradient and a multiply filter so that it darkens it up a bit. Just gives me a little bit more contrast. Or there's another way you could do this. You could go back to the original and again, never destructively modify anything. It's a bad tactic to get into. So you could use, these are layer filters. So you could use any of these. I like to use levels a lot. And so levels, you could lighten it up, or you could darken it down, or you could leave the ends as they are and just kind of adjust the whole tone of the thing. So I'm just going to maybe darken it up a bit here. And this is non-destructive, so that means I can literally just hide that and it goes right back to the original, which is nice. And I still think I might use this a little bit because these whites are still too white, even with the filter that I did, because I didn't adjust the slider ends of the levels. And so I'm going to do that. And of course, you're going to want to save your project. So we'll just, for the purposes of this, we'll save it on our desktop. So, maybe slide 1. Usually slide 1's not how you should title something. Make sure you title it appropriately. You can find it later. And then we're going to save for web. So in this case, it's Control-Shift-Alt-S. On the Mac, I actually have a quick key set where I have it Control, Command, and W, but you can set those up however you want. And then, of course, you're going to want to pay attention to your file size. And so this is a 1600 by 750 pixel image. And you're going to want to make sure you don't lose too much of that quality in there. But we're going to take it down as much as I feel like I can without losing too much quality. So you start to see some of this digital noise in here, some digital noise in there, quite a bit of digital noise in there. You can also blur it a tiny bit, and sometimes that helps a lot. Not enough in this case. It's not helping much. So we're just going to bring it back up to around 30. Boy, you can see the original pixels there. I'm not loving it. There, that's better. So you definitely need to watch that. Save it down. So this will be slide 1. So there's our original image and all the various layers we used. And, you know, so you can create a nice video slider or a slider. And then, you know, you could use some text in here. So you're not going to do it in Photoshop. You're going to use, the text is going to come out in another tool like Adobe XD or Sketch or even for that matter, just placing it right into WordPress and putting it right on there. But let's just pretend for a second that we're doing something. So that is what I had to show you today. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope you guys have an awesome week. And I will see you next week on Learn Design with Eric.